Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. How quickly did you witness a coworker being fired? Part 6. A newspaper ad for an art company with Limp Bizkit-style management seeking creative individuals for office job led to one of my first jobs after college. I applied, and the next day I had an interview. During the interview, I learned that the office was a warehouse, the art was prints and frames that we were supposed to sell, and the creative part was making sure you didn't get caught asking people in businesses to buy your frames without a permit. Even though it was called a bunch of crap, I chose to at least stick it out. My first day, I worked with one of the best salespeople. I rode around with them and we tried to sell a lot of stuff at doctor's offices and other places, but we always got out of there before the police arrived. I was told to go through every door that said "do not solicit" because that meant there were marks behind the door. I was beginning to doubt them. The next day, I went out by myself after putting tons of framed prints in my truck. I had a terrible time and was called every name under the sun. When I walked in with heavy A frames under my arms, everyone called the police right away to report me as an illegal lawyer, so I always had to run and leave very quickly. The weather was getting worse by lunchtime, and I didn't have a tarp or cover for the bed of my truck. I called the guy who showed me around yesterday, but the boss wasn't answering, and he told me to go back to my apartment and put all the frames inside to wait out the storm. The rain didn't stop until later that night. The next morning, my boss calls and asks why I didn't drop off the frames before I went home. I told them I was an hour away from the warehouse and it was beginning to rain, so I brought the goods to my house to keep them from getting damaged. He lost it and started yelling that I shouldn't have left without a tarp or camper, even though he hadn't said a word while helping me load frames into the bed of my truck. He also threatened to charge me thousands of dollars for stolen goods if I didn't give him back everything by the end of the day, minus the things I had sold. Needless to say, I threw all the frames into the still wet bed of my truck, left them in his parking spot, and never came back. I hope they were still there when it started to rain. Like 3 hours. I hired a new girl for an insurance agency. She had to get licensed before she could sell, but she would be getting paid to study in the office. Here's the setup. Me, insurance, licensed for 5 years at this point. Owner, licensed for 30 plus years. Know-it-all new girl, Kia, 19, and knows everything. Kia interviewed really well. I let her know she could be in the next morning at 9. I show up and she's already there. Effing go get her, am I right? Kia, you're late. You said 8:30. That's real odd since we don't open up until 9 and I'm always there at 8:50. Me, my bad. I don't know why I would have told 8:30. More time to get you set up. Owner pulls up at 9. I have Kia working on signing up for schooling. First customer at like 10-ish. Still just us three. I'm explaining some coverage and Kia butts in. Kia, no, that's wrong. I think what you meant to say is XYZ. Me, sorry, that's a common misconception. I'll handle this, thanks. The owner sitting between us gives me a WTF look and I shrug. Customer leaves, I get a chance to talk to Kia and let her know that insurance is very particular and just because you have some ancillary knowledge doesn't make that legal. I explained the last issue and gave examples and let her go back to studying. It's roughly noon, and I'm in the back prepping lunch. I hear owner helping a customer and Kia butts in again. Kia, this exact thing happened to my brother. It should be this way. Owner wasn't having it and firmly told her to go sit back down and study. Customer leaves, and I go out to talk to Kia. I wave for owner to take a smoke break. Kia's crying because owner disrespected her. I once again explained that her life experience with insurance law likely won't apply. If she thought something was wrong, to take a note and approach me after the fact. Owner goes on extended lunch. Customer number 3, just a payment, no chance Kia will slip up. With insurance in my states, the last payment has to be exact change. This guy owed like $96.37 and gave me a $100 bill. And we didn't carry change, all cash went directly into the safe. Started explaining to the customer that I needed exact. Kia jumps in again. No, they can pay extra, it just goes on the next bill. Me, no, please stop. Kia, but I've done this before. I overpay every month. Me, please go wait for me in the break room. Kia starts crying and goes to the break room. Customer 3 done with a lot of explaining. I go back to the break room and explain how this isn't working out and we'll pay her for the day. She freaked out and said, "You're not the boss of me. I'll wait here for the owner." Owner, who had just walked in. "No need, hon. You're done. Get your ass and go. I'll have a check ready for you tomorrow." After Kia left, we just sat there dumbstruck on how confidently incorrect some people could be. It took 3.5 hours. As part of my job, I watched over a big warehouse. An RNG buzzer decided when someone had to go through a random security check when they left the warehouse. As Black Friday got closer, the warehouse hired a lot of temporary workers. During their training, I paid special attention to one new temporary worker. He was so cocky that it was unreal. He was bragging about everything to his fellow trainees who were laughing and joking around with him. I stopped paying attention for now. Their actions were not at all strange. They were just annoying. You know the type. The next day, on my way to my first break, I worked on the warehouse gate. During these busy times, the security team has to be at the top of their game at all times. 400 to 500 people leaving the building, while 12 to 14 security guards have to call over the checks and actually search the workers for things that might have been stolen. I could hear the trainees from the day before, even though there were a lot of people leaving the warehouse. One of them wasn't talking at all, though. The cocky trainee from yesterday, who was now working his first shift, was at the gate waiting to scan his card. He looked completely scared, with tears running down his face. When he scans to leave, it shows up green. He can leave without being checked. His face lights up with happiness. And I thought this was very strange behavior. He doesn't mind when I call him over to talk. At first, he seemed hesitant, and his fellow trainees, who were probably on their way to lunch, told him some harsh words. I asked for him to be searched because I can quickly check on anyone on the site at any time. A handheld metal detector is used to search. It is swiped forward and backward. After that, they have to take their shoes off and take them to make sure nothing's hidden. Finally, and most importantly, they need to show their belt because the metal detector can't get a good reading. Stuffed into his belt, 2 pairs of rather skimpy-looking women's nightwear, the see-through kind. I told myself, gotcha. Called over my supervisor and he got a hold of his team leader. He didn't try to hide the stolen goods from his fellow trainees when he turned them over. I held them up. All I said was, buddy, I don't think they suit you. The dude never saw his dinner. Which homeowners association experience was the worst for you? Part 6. The HOA in my neighborhood was fine when I was a kid. I did move though. The complex I moved into was split in half. One half had apartments for rent and the other half had condos that people owned. No one cared what people who lived in apartments did, but the HOA was mean to people who lived in condos. The place was bought by the parents of my fiance and we rented it from them. The HOA first told us we needed new windows because the ones we had were old and didn't work anymore. However, the HOA had to give their approval, which took 3 months. After the windows were put in, the HOA was very angry that they were made of the wrong kind of glass. They're almost torn out. The lights on my balcony were not Christmas lights. They were small, white, frosted lights that turned on at 5 p.m. and off at 10 p.m. so that my balcony wouldn't get too dark. After putting them up for about a year, a big angry woman came over and yelled at me to take them down because I was breaking some HOA rules. At that point, my balcony was pretty dark and, to be honest, a little scary. The HOA told me that plants on my balcony couldn't be seen from there, especially flowers, which they didn't like. There were also religious pamphlets left on my door every week by an HOA member, even though that was against the rules, thank you. There was a notice on my car once that said it wasn't up to the standards of the complex. I did not do anything. But I did get back at them. We could put up holiday lights from the day after Thanksgiving until January 5th. I bought a ton of the worst lights I could find, made sure they flashed, and put them up in the sloppiest way I could. I left them on from the day after Thanksgiving until midnight on the 5th. The best part was that I was told almost every day when the lights had to be turned off. It's great that we moved. I bought a lot in Hawaii in 1974 in a big subdivision. There were about 2,400 lots that were 2 to 3 acres each, and there were 60 miles of private roads. Used to be part of a big ranch. The lots were dirt cheap because there was no provision on the deed for road maintenance or any utilities. Lawbreakers were the only ones who wanted to live there, back to the land types. There was no HOA, and there were only 30 people living in the whole subdivision. There was a gold rush of pot growers who bought land over there the next few years. Others simply used the sub to grow prohibited plants. Soon, the roads went from being grassy parkways to being rocky riverbeds. Keeping the subdivision agricultural in nature was the main goal of the HOA that some of my neighbors and I formed. We were only interested in getting work groups together to fix the roads. There were no fees, and we didn't have any legal power. It was mainly a club. Then, one year, someone had the brilliant idea to sue the county to get the rights to keep the roads in good shape by charging all property owners a fee. A pricey letter-writing campaign caused it to fail. The property owners were mostly not there. It was hot at this point because more than 100 people had shown up to the association meetings. Residents got together at one meeting to form a group that would fight the lawsuit and run for office. They won, and then they filed the lawsuit again right away. They completely changed their minds about the matter. Another letter campaign couldn't happen because there wasn't enough money. The last one's workers were worn out. The lawsuit went through, and the county was relieved of any duty to keep the roads in good shape. One deed has a 1 in 2,500 undivided interest in them, so they were privately owned. However, they were in the public domain by adverse possession for so long that no one enforced the private ownership. That's great. It's now up to each property owner to pay $50 a year for maintenance on public roads. Previously, the county was responsible for this. Anyway, it turns out that now that we've claimed ownership of the roads, there's a liability issue. This means we need to get insurance. My nephew sells insurance, and he's great, for the 60 miles of bad roads. It's true that the membership fees will go up. You can't vote until all of your fees are paid. You can't even bring up, "Oh, and my friend Russ owns a road grader. He's great." Associations often get taken over by the jerks and control freaks who work the hardest to get power. From what I've seen, they're petty politicians to be. An HOA was present in the neighborhood where my coworker lived. He stated that he was receiving letters from the HOA on a fairly consistent basis for a variety of reasons, including the fact that his lawn was not properly maintained, that he painted his mailbox the wrong color, that the HOA decided to change the list of acceptable colors for garage doors, and that he did not repaint his garage door in a timely manner to satisfy them. Oh, and my personal favorite, grilling and barbecuing meals outside on days and at times that are not permitted by the HOA. We worked as truck drivers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of North Texas, where we were responsible for driving around natural gas wells. After working for 4 days of 12 hours each, we took 2 days off and then we began again. In the event that the business experienced a surge in activity, we would work 5 days and take 1 day off. It's clear that our days off are different every week, as you can see. During his days off, my coworker enjoyed grilling whenever the weather was suitable for doing so. Residents were only permitted to grill on Saturdays and Sundays between the hours of 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the evening, according to the information provided by the HOA. A coworker of mine mentioned that he had finally run out of patience with all of these letters and decided to take a day off from work in order to attend one of the monthly meetings of the HOA. He stated that he waited until the president of the HOA opened the floor for new business before he made his decision. When he was finally given the opportunity to speak, he declared, "I move that we disband the HOA." A colleague of mine stated that he overheard a number of people seconding the motion. In accordance with the established protocol, the president of the HOA was compelled to put the motion to a vote. My coworker stated that there were approximately 40 residents present at the meeting, and the only individuals who did not vote in favor of disbanding the HOA were the 5 members of the HOA committee who were present at the meeting. The next day, my coworker arrived at work and informed everyone about what had happened. He had never before appeared to be so content. If you want to watch the part 5, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, the likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.